Come one, come all to the spectacular spectacle of spirits. Join the amazing Eddy Brothers as they share the gifts to summons and speak with the deceased. Peel back the veil between the living and the afterlife as these two rural farm boys share their incredible gifts with the public. Believers and skeptics alike are welcome. Come and see the truth for yourself. Shows 6 days a week start at 8 p.m. sharp at the Spirit Vale Estates, just minutes from downtown Rutland. Tickets available at the door. I'm Chris.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Sean.
And this is Weirder After Dark.
Chris, that was a hell of an intro. It got me thinking a little bit about being a grifter. And I recently
Kind
thought...
of that circus promoter vibe.
Yeah. I was thinking this week, I don't know if you all can relate, but sometimes you just find yourself sitting at work being like, I would do anything to quit my job and to not just be here right now.
Yes.
Does that ever happen?
Yes.
I kind of like my job.
I hate you. We all hate you a little more.
Yeah, he's not the norm.
But I was sitting there and I was like, how could I just not have to work ever? And I started my mental exercise by thinking, how much money would I need to never have to work again? I think $2.5 million is the price, because I could invest it smartly, get some bonds, make about $100,000 a year, and I
Get your money to
I could
make
live
money.
comfortably off that,
All right.
like never have to worry about it. So obviously, the next thought was, how do I get $2.5 million?
Sure.
So all I have to do is get 1 million people to give me $5, and I have $5 million. Well, how many people are inside the United States? There's 370 million people in the United States. That means that I only need 1 in 370 people to give me $5.
You don't know 1 million people.
Well, that's the problem, right? So the problem is,
All right.
I
the problem.
No, hear me out.
Okay.
I think if you put 370 people in front of me, I can convince one of them to give me $5. I can
Yeah,
probably convince 20 of them to give me $5. But the problem is how do you get exposure to 370 million people, right?
Right.
It's a math problem, really, at the end of the day, right? So then I started thinking like, okay, well, how do we go ahead and get exposure to 370 million people? It brought me to GoFundMe, okay? So what you could do is, no, I know, I see your face, and I can hear the gang judging me. I hear the sigh, okay? But imagine this. You start a GoFundMe. In exchange for your $5, I will immediately, on the spot, quit my job. I will use the funds to start a YouTube channel. On that YouTube channel, I will hire a full-time editor and a full-time videographer who will follow me around. Every day for the next 365 days, I will post a video. But the cool part about the video, whatever the top comment is that's most liked by the community, I have to do that the next day for 365 days. And you join me on your journey. You get to watch this.
I think
as it all
you
unfolds.
need to broaden your boundaries.
I would spend 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Sean, do
people would
whatever I
spend
want.
$5. People would do that. You basically have control over a person.
There are some fucked up people out there.
Oh, for sure.
So,
for sure.
yeah, I think you just need to be
think you need to
careful.
pick
You're
one.
like, I'll do anything you like.
Within limits, right?
Yeah,
I think there would be a couple rules, right?
Yeah.
You'd pull some rules that, like, I have 5 vetoes in my pocket at any point in time where
Yeah.
I'm going to number 2 idea. So there'd be some limits to it. But tell me you wouldn't donate $5 to that to be like,
I'll
I want to see
donate
the crazy
$5
stuff.
right now
Oh, that's so
to
sweet.
see you do something.
yeah.
Anything I want.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it would work. I have to get something out of this deal. So I'm pocketing $2.5 million, and I will spend $2.5 million or 365 days of you tell me what to do, whatever ends first. I think they would do it.
Isn't that the whole premise of OnlyFans?
Well, no. That's like taking your clothes off, Chris. That's a very different premise.
That's
All
why
right.
he needs to broaden his boundaries of like what's acceptable and what's not.
I don't want to break any laws, and I don't want to show my butt. There would be rules. There'd be rules. There'd be rules.
Very strict guidelines.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, that is my plan.
I think you're onto something. I think you're going to do some ridiculous stuff and might hate yourself.
I
don't
mean,
know.
all 3 of us at this table have done some questionable things and
When I'm
didn't
not a
walk away
millionaire.
with millions
All right.
of dollars.
Fair.
So,
So fair.
That was an interesting intro because I'm going to talk
Don't sound
about
convinced.
some brothers that might have been grifters, might not have.
Okay.
And I'll let you guys kind of decide.
All right. I'm in. I'm ready.
So it's 1872. You're headed up Route 7 in rural Vermont in a horse-drawn carriage. You and 3 friends are going to a show or a medium or a seance, something like that. You're not sure. Curious but skeptical, you decide it's going to be an experience either way. The flyer you found earlier reads, 2 local farm boys who manifest spirits from beyond for your amazement. Now you're from the city. You're more worldly than that. 2 local farm boys are not going to pull the wool over on your eyes. Joking around with your friends put your uncertainty to rest and your mind at ease, but truth be told, you have no idea what you're walking into and you have some apprehension. You are now about 5 miles outside of Rutland, Vermont, and the carriage turns off the marked roads, and you're completely off the map you studied earlier that day. As the oppressive dark of night and the desolate quietness of the mountain pass road hits you, you go quiet and reserved. But not just you, your 3 friends you were traveling with who were just joking and chatting moments ago, they've gone silent as well. As the horse continues along the half road, half path, the eerie silence of the night envelops the entire carriage.
We've gone to Vermont. We've gone up to my family's lake house. You have to drive Route 7 for a portion to get there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is quiet at night.
very
Even
quiet.
now, in 2026, there is a lot of farmland and not a lot of
Yeah.
people. So,
And it's dark.
yeah. So I can only imagine back in these times. Like, whew.
Yeah.
In a horse-drawn carriage.
Yeah.
So as you draw closer, you are almost relieved to see a sign in the distance, a sign of civilization again. During the pale moonlight, you are able to make it out. You have arrived, and the fun and adventurous outing you had planned now takes a much darker and more ominous feel. So you've just arrived at the brothers William and Horatio Eddy's family farm to bear witness to these 2 spiritualists completing a seance. You are ushered into a room on the 2nd floor of the family cabin. There's a small stage at one end with a long rectangular room with rows of chairs for guests facing the stage. A black curtain acts as a backdrop, and a too small for anything practical door sits at the side of the stage with a giant padlock on it. Just the sight of the door for some reason makes you a little uncomfortable. Other guests have already taken their seat, giving you some solace. You and your friends were not alone, but the other guests sat in quiet anticipation, whispering back and forth. You could see that they were just as unsure and apprehensive as you were. A quick chance to change your mind and walk out came and went as 2 men, William and Horatio, emerged from behind the curtain to start the show. Several stagehands accompanied them to the stage area, but they walk in silence and reverence behind the mystical pair. You will soon find out what that creepy small door with the large padlock is for. William, now center stage, starts to address the crowd. He explains the conditions needed to summon the spirits and announces, when the veil is thin, the ritual could be done in full illumination. But when the veil is foggy, the ritual had to take place in near pitch dark. You say quietly in your head, please be thin, and then they blow all the candles in the barn are blown out, leaving just the dim glow of a few candles around the stage. And you swallow hard and wonder to yourself, how did you get into this? William, now walking around the audience of about 15 guests, requests the audience members hold hands to heighten the spiritual energy available in the room. Everyone complies. The show begins in silence, without explanation, as Horatio is tied tightly to a chair using large ropes.
Wait, what?
He is dragged into a small room behind that eerie, small door. The door is shut and padlocked in dramatic fashion. William, now center stage, explains that Horatio needs to be in the dark and silence to conjure the spirits who will be communicating with tonight, and the ropes are for his own safety so he does not float away into the spirit realm and is lost forever. He also explains that Horatio, when he comes out of his trance, will not remember any of the events of tonight. William and his 2 stagehands take seats on the stage, dimly lit by candles on stage left and stage right. As his 2 assistants seemingly go into a trance-like state, William introduces the night's first spirit, Hunto, a Native American maiden. 3 loud knocks seem to echo from everywhere and nowhere at once. William explains that the knocks are a request from the spirit realm. William invites Hunto in. William starts to sway in his chair and his head rolls back and he enters into a trance-like state. His voice and mannerisms are suddenly different, somehow changed. He starts to speak and move with a much more feminine tone and manner. And he was no longer talking in English, but in an Algonquin language that sounded fluent but foreign. Skeptical, you listen to the stagehand as he translates the Native American's words. Hunto tells you about her life and her death and her place in the spirit world. The loud knocks return and William seems to come out of his trance. His voice and mannerisms familiar again. Impressed but not convinced, you push back in your chair in a semi-dismissive gesture. Just then, another set of knocks seemed to come out of nowhere.
What a scene that's going on. How could you not be immediately bought in?
Oh, yeah.
So intense. Candles go out. They're walking around you, talking, setting it all up. Pull me in, baby.
Yeah, no,
like,
It's a pretty amazing stage show, right?
like if this is fake, like they're committed. They've got something. But if it's real, like, whew.
We'll get to the end of this, and I'll be in the exact same place.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's real.
Ooh, okay.
So another set of knocks seem to come out of nowhere and everywhere all at once. You can't quite place where they are, and William goes back into his trance. His demeanor this time was again feminine, but much older and more hunched over. His voice now more raspy and ominous as you are introduced to the Witch of the Mountain. She explains her story of unreturned love, revenge, and tragic end being burnt at the stake. William seemingly rivaling in pain as she describes, the flames climbing higher in her dramatic final moments. Then the knocks again and William is back. At this point, you're convinced that William is a very talented actor, but not convinced he is channeling people from the spirit realm. William, almost on cue, says, "I see we have some skeptics." Feeling like William was talking directly to you, almost in your head, you avoid eye contact and have a long, uncomfortable staring contest with the floor. William starts to walk around the room and asks the crowd, "Who shall we conjure next?" He sits down next to a man and whispers in a quiet conversation for a while. William, in dramatic fashion, jumps up and announces, "We are summoning Aunt Clara, this man's great aunt from the old country." 3 more mysterious knocks, and William walks over to the small door on the stage right and unlocks it. The silhouette of a small woman dressed in an all-white dress emerges.
What?
Her building gait was clearly not Horato's, and even in the poorly lit room, she had a feminine stride and manner. The apparition walked across the room and sat next to the man who had asked for her and spoke a phrase in Bulgarian. The man seemed to understand her words and seemed comforted, but also astounded and confused. Then she walked into a dark corner opposite of the stage and seemingly just disappeared into the dark.
What?
Now William has your full attention, but he's not done yet. 3 knocks, and the apparition of Honto, the young Native American woman, emerges from the small closet. Just then, from outside and downstairs, seemingly an entire tribe of natives start to hoot and stomp and make a ruckus. Then they go quiet, and Honto disappears back into the small closet. A female member of the audience asks to see her deceased father, dressed in his military fatigues for one last time. William, in a grand gesture, summons the young lady's father. Another 3 knocks, still occurring from nowhere and everywhere all at once, is announced, and William unlocks the small door and invites the soldier forth. A tall, lanky, plainclothes man stepped out of the closet, barely visible but clearly recognizable by the young woman because she starts to burst out into tears. The man, or apparition, or soldier, or ghost, or whatever he is, doesn't say a word, but instead ducks back into the tiny closet and closes the door behind him. Moments later, he reemerges in full military uniform, shimmering in the candlelight, a full sword in its sleeve at his side. He stands proud and tall as his daughter weeps openly. Then again, he walks into the dark corner, the opposite end of the room, and disappears. Your rational mind desperately searches for an answer, trapdoors, planted audience members, great actors, anything but it spears from the other side. It's all just a clever show, but nothing more. As soon as you start to feel back in control, William spins around and locks eyes with you. You want him to look anywhere else, but he walks towards you, never breaking eye contact. He kneels right in front of you and says, "Who would you like to conjure next, my skeptical friend?" Your mind frantically searches for somebody from beyond, somebody not obvious, somebody that can confirm or deny this as fact or fanciful show. You sheepishly ask for your great-grandmother, Maria. William returns to the stage. He sits down and grabs a pen and a piece of paper. Again, the knocking. Again, William invites Maria in. Instead of a voice or an apparition, William starts to write on the page, almost in a trance-like state, at times not even looking at the paper as he's writing on. Again, he comes out of the trance and looks at the paper he was just writing on, looking at it like this was the first time he's ever seen it. With a complex look, he announces, "I cannot read it." You think the jig's up. He's showing his hand. Of course he can't read this. It's just fake. It was all just a clever hoax. He walks over to you and hands you the paper and whispers, "I think it's in Italian." And there it is, written in perfect Italian. "Papa and I love you and miss you, my precious grandson. Be good to your mother and we'll visit you both often." Overwhelmed with emotion and confusion, mind racing, you sit in disbelief, trying desperately to normalize your breathing and make sense of what you just witnessed. Just then, the show ends. Candles are lit, and you and your friends are escorted back to the carriage. The ride back to the hotel is silent as you ponder the reality you lived in 3 hours ago versus the reality you've now come to know. Well, guys, you've just attended the seance with the Eddy Brothers at the Eddy Brothers family farm at Spirit Vale in Chitlin, Vermont.
Chitlin, yeah.
Chitlin, not Chitlin.
Gang, we've been talking about it for months, but they're finally here. We've officially started collaborating with Ghost Poppy on 3 uniquely Weirder After Dark candles, and they're available right now.
Our first one is simply branded Weirder After Dark, and it's everything you would expect when sitting around a campfire, sharing stories with your friends in New England.
Hints of maple, clove, earth, smoked amber, pine, cedar, patchouli, a true hanging out by the fire vibe.
We'll also have 2 scents inspired by 2 of our favorite Weirder After Dark tales.
The first being Chris's story on Boone Island.
Guys, wait, wasn't that one about cannibalism?
It sure was, but it also takes place on an island off the rocky coast of Maine, and that's what you can expect with this candle.
Think scents of moss, earth, juniper, bergamot, ozone, the fresh sense of being on an island after an intense thunderstorm.
That sounds so much nicer than what I was thinking. Thank you, guys.
So much nicer. And lastly, a scent inspired by the Voynich manuscript, a story we were all captivated by. And for this one, imagine yourself peaceful and curiously reading an ancient manuscript in a quiet library.
You'll get the sense of bergamot, eucalyptus, balsam, leather, and patchouli.
And you can feel good about buying these candles. Why?
Because it's made by a small US-based business, and they've been such a pleasure to work with. Carla and her husband Sean make these candles by hand. They're 100% soy-based, vegan, paraben, and sulfate and cruelty-free, which means absolutely no nasty chemicals and all the good feels for you.
So gang, if you're loving these episodes and want to support us, head over to ghostpoppy.com and find the Weirder After Dark collection. The link will be in the description and pick up some of your own candles today. It would absolutely mean the world.
Thanks.
But who are these two local farm boys, and how were they able to pull off such a convincing show? What was real and was just clever acting and theatrics? The story is actually much stranger than you guys might think. Henry Olcott was an agricultural journalist from the Daily Graphic News in the United States in the pre-Civil War years. Now, believe it or not, that was a very prestigious position back in the 1600s. Farming was a large piece of life, and accurate reporting meant survival. So it was a very important journalistic endeavor. So he switched to covering the Civil War, and once the war was over, he was actually brought in to investigate the assassination of Abraham Lincoln as part of a distinguished panel of investigators. Now, Lincoln did not die at the hands of Wilkes Booth in the barn like we've been told, but that's a whole other podcast, guys. We're not going to get into that.
Not today.
The point here is that Henry is a very accomplished journalist and a trusted voice by the nation. Later in his career, he started to cover the spiritualist movement. He helped to investigate and report on mediums including the Fox sisters, the Davenports of Buffalo, New York, the knocking incident in Rochester, Mass., and the Coon family in Ohio. He was known for his straightforward reporting and calling out fraud when he's seen it, but also accurately reporting what he could not explain. He was not a believer or a skeptic, but a reporter that held himself to a high journalistic code of ethics. So for several years, Henry investigated the Eddy brothers and wrote a series of articles about the Eddy family. He actually moved to Rutland, Vermont for a year to cover the brothers more appropriately.
Love the commitment.
Yeah, he was all in on this.
Yeah.
So the rest of this story will be told through articles written by Henry about the Eddy brothers. Henry conducted many interviews and attended many shows and even tested the brothers using his investigative skills. So for the telling of this story, it makes sense to start with Henry's interview with the Eddy brothers' parents. So he described their parents as very religious and not very well educated. He used the words, the big toe of society to be exact. I'm not sure, that's a little harsh, but you guys get the point. So the brothers' parents reported that their strange abilities to the brothers started in the crib. Strange voices and sounds would come from around the babies' cribs while nobody was in the room. The two babies would play for hours with friends who were only visible to them. They reported watching the babies float across the room almost like they were being carried.
What?
Floated across
By an
the room.
invisible caregiver. Yes, this is what he
No.
said in the interview.
I would be leaving those babies in the woods. Sorry.
They go on to report that William Eddy, the older of the two brothers, as a toddler would go into trance-like states, and his parents would have to yell or clap or pinch or even slap him to wake him back up.
Slapping their baby.
Just slapping the baby around, trying to wake him up.
Wake up! Get out of the trance!
So one time, the trance was so deep that they actually poured boiling water on William.
What?
He wouldn't wake up. And then
Boiling water?
they put a hot coal on his forehead from the fireplace, and he still wouldn't wake. You see, they believed he was in the spirit realm and he couldn't find his way back. And they
Yeah, but
thought
didn't
that the
that
pain...
scar him?
Ooh.
How do you pour boiling water on a baby and not scar
Great
them? Or
parenting.
kill them? This is horrific.
Get him out of his trance. Hurt him to get him out. Whatever you got to do.
Despite these injuries, he didn't come out of his trance. In fact, he just slept easily through these injuries.
What?
And he came out of his trance the next day. Now, Henry was later shown by William the scars from the burn on his forehead and his chest to prove the story is true.
No. Honestly, though, I would die for a night's sleep like that. Put me in a day and a half trance.
He's
Let's
in a
go.
2-day trance. This is great.
Think as a parent, your kid's quiet for a day and a half. I'm like, let him be.
Yeah, you're probably concerned.
That's why I'm not a parent.
Well, this might add a little light to the story. So when the children were 10 and 12 years old, their parents took them on the road and they did a traveling roadside show to showcase their mediumship abilities. They traveled all over the Northeast and once to London, England to perform their show. They would have the kids speak to the dead and conjure spirits in random towns as they moved around by carriage. Whether the parents were con men or they had abilities and the parents passed in, that's up to you. But this was something they were doing from 10 years old. So sometimes they were booed out of town, and sometimes they made just enough money to get to the next town. They were no means famous or getting rich off of this, and eventually their younger sister, Mary, started to join them on the roadside shows and offered psychic readings and card readings, as the family started to figure out and kind of master their craft. So once teenagers, the Eddy children reportedly foresaw an open carriage drawn by 2 white horses with large red plumes on their heads that was foretelling their mother's death. When they offered to keep the carriage driver at bay, the Eddy children started to collect a salary of $10 a month at nightly shows. So mediumship or good negotiation skills, I'm not sure. But it leans into what Henry was saying about the parents not being that bright if they look on him. Well, later on in life, William reported he saw his deceased grandmother holding a basket of roses nightly the week before his mother actually passed away. So Mrs. Eddy, the brother's mom, passed away shortly after her interview with Henry of some unknown ailment. One night, Henry decided to complete a test. He and a friend went down to Mrs. Eddy's grave and made a stone rubbing of her grave. They told no one, and they were careful when walking home to make sure nobody saw them leaving the graveyard. That night, they attended the Eddy seance at Spirit Val. The Eddy brothers conjured Edgar Allan Poe, King George, several audience members' deceased relatives, but the last spirit that came through was Miss Eddy. She appeared out of a small closet door, a thick-bodied older woman. She then bowed and returned back into the small doorway. Henry and his friend were not convinced this proved or disproved anything. Moments later, she came out of the small door again, walked over close to where Henry was sitting and announced, "Death is where thy sting, and thy grave is thy victory." Not whispering, but saying it loud enough for everybody in the room to hear. For Henry as his friend, this was proof enough to the brothers' gifts.
So they're making the connection because they went to the grave. So that's what they're saying, that's their proof. Okay.
Yeah. Well, to further test the Eddys, Henry had set up a seance in Philadelphia with a friend and fellow paranormal researcher, Katie King. It was to be held at her house to control the conditions and further prove or disprove their abilities. 12 others sat in on this test, including members of the prominent Psychical Research Commission, who were based out of Philadelphia. So William and Horatio summoned 12 separate spirits that night. William was able to channel Katie's deceased father, a man by the name of John King. He spoke in his voice and wrote in his hand. While talking to John King, knocking seemed to be coming from all corners of the room. A single red rose seemed to appear out of nowhere, John's favorite flower, according to Katie. A handbell that sat on a table with nobody within 10 feet of it kept ringing throughout the entire night. William and Horatio were perfectly at ease with all this chaos, as if it was normal. Katie was in tears, and Henry recorded in his article the test was a great success and above and beyond anybody's expectations. So here they are, not on the home turf, right?
Yeah. How would you fake that?
That is a great question. We're going to get into all of that.
Do you, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do you get that information? Like, do you have people there beforehand?
That's a good question.
And we're in the early 1900s, Chris?
1872.
That's insane. I don't know. I can't explain that because I was thinking like when we go ghost hunting, sometimes they have those like EVP bells that pick up like the electromagnetic pulses.
Oh, yeah.
This will ring, but that doesn't exist then.
I mean, it could be all stage tricks and, rigged, but it could be really hard to pull that off in somebody else's house, I would think.
Well, they had carnivals like back then, and they used to do shows like this.
So this show was put on for members of the Psychical Research Foundation. So these people were well in depth in this world.
Yeah, and they're trying to disprove it.
Yeah.
They're either trying to disprove it or maybe they want it to be true.
Yeah.
Like, we're not sure. So Henry ended up putting his articles together in a book called The People from the Other Side, chronicling his experiences and findings while following and testing the Eddy brothers. The book was a favorite amongst the spiritualist movement, and their fame brought in more patrons, but also brought in more scrutiny from other more skeptical reporters. Later that year, an article came out in the Sun-Times newspaper calling the Eddy Brothers show as second-rate grifters. It reported that at Spirit Vale, the oversized chimney that sat on the far side of the house had a secret door where actors could disappear into the dark corner. It also claimed that there was a trap door in the small closet allowing actors to appear and disappear without being seen. The article accused the Eddy's sister, Mary, who never attended the seances, of being the same size and build as Honto, the Native American woman who made the appearances at many seances. She was also accused of impersonating many of the other female apparitions, including the Lady of the Lake and a young Arab boy. The article goes on to say Mary was often found at the hotel or local pub in the town of Rutland, gathering information about the night's guests and planning out the night's apparitions and storylines.
Ooh, long con potentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
The article also claims Horatio, being locked in the closet in a trance, gave him plenty of time to change into the characters of the male apparitions and play some of those spirits, as well as the Witch of the Mountain, who had a much deeper and more raspy voice.
Let's hypothetically say that's true. How do you mistake a man with like a sheet over him as like a spirit? Like, even if it's dark, how do you mistake that?
Well, maybe they had props. Like maybe there was like a wig and, it's just kind of like straggly and they hunch over. And
I want you guys to remember, this show was done almost completely in the dark. So you had a couple of candles in the corner of the room, kind of as they walked out, you kind of see them, but you couldn't really.
All right.
And I think too, just like magicians, right? Like look over here while something's happening here to make you think that what you're seeing there is what that person's telling.
Well, the article went on to debunk the simple farmhouse family angle and reported that while never formally educated, the brothers were well-traveled and worldly than advertised. This was also reported by Henry, a true believer, reporting that they traveled as a family putting on shows in the United States and once in London. The article goes on to report as for the brothers writing and speaking in foreign language fluently. The article claimed that most of these words were nonsensical and mixed in with a few memorized phrases from the actual foreign tongue.
Yeah, because like if I went to a show and then like someone like was up on stage and they had like a French accent and like threw in a couple of words that maybe I would recognize, they could make it up. I wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, they claimed that this was the same for the written word in foreign languages. It was just a few memorized phrases that they memorized how to write. The article claimed that while dark and surrounded by theatrics, a scrutinizing eye could see the costumes and wigs that were poorly put together and lacked the skill of a proper theater. This scathing review and rebuttal was printed in all the local newspapers. A few weeks later, after the article came out, the Eddy family moved out of town. The official reason given by the Eddy brothers was that the spirits preferred the hotter climate, so they were moving south.
I love that.
That's what they said.
Me too.
The paper went on to theorize that after being exposed as frauds, their business was no longer profitable, and this is what prompted their hasty remove.
Did they continue doing it down south?
So the Eddy family returned to their roots, taking their show on the road, doing roadside shows again in upstate New York. They were arrested and fined for fraud several times, and the courts eventually told them they could not practice in New York anymore or they would face jail time.
Wow.
After this, the Eddy family show seemed to shut down for good.
That seems harsh. Like, it's just a show.
They're grifting, though.
Yeah, but if you're willing to pay to go see the show, that's like me walking into like a movie theater, watching a movie and being like, I didn't like it.
And we're saying this movie's fake. Star Wars is fake.
Star Wars is fake.
Well, it's
like, I don't know. It's just...
Yeah, it's right on that line. Like they're saying, no, we are really channeling the dead, and they're talking to people's relatives, which is pretty personable, but they're also showmen, right?
Well, yeah. And the people are staged. Like, the people are...
Allegedly. Yeah.
Maybe.
Allegedly.
My biggest red flag so far is they're like, the spirits want to go somewhere warm. And they end up in northern New York.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Well, I mean, they are traveling in a horse and buggy, so.
Sure. But northern New York, it got no warmer.
Yeah, right after the article came out.
So let me get into some theories, and we can kind of logic this out a little bit.
Okay.
So the most logical and reasonable conclusion is that the Eddy family were incredibly talented actors and showmen, and they had been perfecting their craft since 8 and 10 years old, and they were easily able to fool local rural Vermonters. Sleight of hand in a dark room, clever recon work from Mary allowed them to put on this elaborate show 6 days a week. That's not your average comm job. That is a very elaborate and theatric display put on by a very small group of people. If fraud, why was Henry, a man of such discernment that he was asked to investigate the assassination of President Lincoln, so convinced that the Eddy brothers were the real deal? He investigated them for 2 years. He even moved to Vermont for a year to be closer to them. He tested them. He brought them to Philadelphia, where they performed, not on their home turf, and reportedly distinguished crowd of researchers in the spiritual movement. However, on the other hand, they were performing for people who wanted to believe or were looking for proof that these gifts were real. So I'm not sure that proves or disproves anything either.
Do we know anything about his personal beliefs at all? Like, was he like really into spiritualism and that was like a thing he wanted to like bring to America or something like that?
That's something he wanted to cover. I don't know if he ever, other than covering it, I don't know if he ever made any money off of it.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Maybe the Eddys were actually gifted and could summon the dead, the voices, the possessions, the apparitions. They were all real. And this one article from the Sun-Times was just guesses and uninformed opinions that actually drove the Eddy family from town, not because they were frauds, but because they were not able to get paying customers after the article was printed. It depends on who you talk to, right?
Yeah. If I had a gift and people were telling me I'm fake, I'd be like, let's prove it to you. Come on, right now, let's go.
But the other thing is, if I went to your show and I don't know what it cost, maybe $1 or $2 back then, and then I read in the newspaper it was fake, I'd want to get out of town too, because a bunch of local Vermonters coming for the money back.
That's fair.
I mean, you're summoning dead relatives. People are very emotional. They'd be pissed, right?
That's a good point.
Well, my third theory, and this is a hybrid of the first two, the Eddy brothers were able to communicate with the dead. They were mediums. And yes, part of the show was theatric and a mix of costumes and sleight of hands to keep the audience wowed and amused. Maybe they could channel the dead, but also added some acting and costume changes to keep the show relevant and exciting. If you've ever been to a medium, it's hit or miss. They can't always summon the dead, and they don't always come through the way that you want them to. This theory claims that yes, they were gifted, but they are also playing up their gifts to the audience to keep them coming in the door, which I think is a reasonable theory, right?
I want it to be real.
Yeah. Well, like so many of our episodes, it comes down to your own personal belief system, right? Henry, an experienced investigator, could find proof that the gifts were real. When the journalist from the Sun-Times watched the same show and saw shoddy theatrics and con men, they were covering the same show, but they both saw what they wanted to see. So if mediumship is real, this is evidence that proves what you already believe. And if it's not real, then this is just a clever hoax. The truth is really in the eyes of the beholder, right? But it's weird to me that they were able to pull this off in Philadelphia. Right.
That is the strange
Not
part.
On their home turf.
If you had to, being the one who did the research, Chris, what does your gut say?
Well, my personal gut says that mediumship, I think, is real. But I also think that they were playing this up to keep people coming in. I like the third theory the most. Even if they're just con men, what an incredibly elaborate con to be able to pull this off 6 nights a week for 2 years straight.
Well, they were doing it since they were 10, right?
Yeah. But then to fool a journalist who's a real journalist.
Yeah, but if he wanted to believe it.
That's a good, I
mean.
So this one leaves me it's just a really cool story, and it leaves me somewhere in between.
My gut says hoax. Just because they're leaving Vermont. You make a good point, Chris, that like you have a bunch of pissed off locals.
Yeah.
That's a good enough reason to potentially leave as well, too. I just truly think that you'd be battling and you'd be fighting to try to change the narrative. At least I would be. And I'd be trying to like showcase that it was real. So that like makes me feel a little sus. I also just think there's so many opportunities with how the stage is set. It's like you literally are walking into a theater.
Yes.
Like, and they're setting it up that way intentionally.
Yeah.
Like that just...
Here's these big heavy ropes. He's being tied down very theatrically, and they're not talking. They're just tying him up, and you're just like, what's going on here? Like, you got my attention.
And with that said, I respect it, though. Like, putting on a show, like you were there. It's entertainment is literally what you're putting on in kind of a way. So this is a popular time where the spiritualism movement is popping off. And you mentioned the Fox sisters who came out, and one of the sisters came out and said that it was fake and then redacted that at a later time in the future.
Did you do that story?
No.
Did we talk about it?
That's not New England, so we've talked a little bit about it.
So maybe we touched base on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know
one of you did.
They were doing like 5 or 6 shows a week. And she was sick of it, and she said, by the way, it's all fake.
Yeah.
Oh, you did. It was in
the Hammond Castle.
Hammond Castle,
yeah.
And then a couple weeks later, she came out and said, no, I made that up. I just wanted it out. But nobody believed her at that point.
And she was like mad at her sister.
Yeah.
There's such like a hoax vibe around all this stuff that makes it hard to believe.
Yeah, they're definitely showmen, right?
Yeah.
And they've been doing it since they were very young.
Shout out to one of our listeners again, threw out a request for us to do this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, such a cool story. Keep those coming, guys.
Yeah, keep the requests coming in. But when I did some initial research onto it before, Chris, you picked up the episode, I read an interesting comment, and I wish it was my thought. It's not, so I'm just going to share it. But if there are so many people trying to fake it, are they faking it because they saw the real thing and now they want to just steal that idea to try to profit of it? Does faking it mean that spiritualism is more real or less real because people are trying to fake it?
And just because they want to make a couple bucks off of it doesn't mean it's not real,
Yeah.
right? If I had a gift, I'd probably try to make money off of that too. You're
Same.
an artist, you're a mechanic, you try to make money off of your gifts.
Well, it's just like tarot cards, right? We pay and have someone read our cards. Whether the person who's reading them has practiced and meditated and done the things to make themselves feel centered, to feel more in tune with their cards, I guess as they would say, you go in and you get from it what you think you're going to get from it.
It's interesting because the American Psychiatric Association doesn't endorse mediumship, but it also recommends people that are suffering from a loss. Sometimes it's appropriate to send them to a medium to try to talk to their deceased loved ones.
I'm like so questionable about that, but like I guess like who cares if it's real at that point?
Yeah,
if it helps.
Right. It helps.
That's I think the point that they're saying. We're not saying this is real. We're saying that sometimes it can be helpful.
Yeah.
You know,
real or false? Remember Katie King, the researcher, and they channeled her dad?
Mm-hmm.
She was in tears. She had a real emotional connection to seeing her dad another time, and it was a deep and meaningful moment. Whether it's real or not, I don't think that mattered to Katie.
Right.
So cool. Yeah, I don't know what to think of this one.
Yeah.
I want it to be real. I really do, but if you made me guess, I'm still leaning hoax, I think, on this one. But
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a hoax to me, but I also don't think mediumship is a hoax.
Yeah. Someone come conjure some ghosts for us.
If I could ever go see Tyler Henry, he's the medium to the stars, but he does like big group things and you can like get tickets to go see him live. I'd be so into seeing him. I've seen him on TV.
Have you ever
He's
seen
so good.
Taxi Cab Medium?
No,
it's really actually good.
I gotta look this up.
I turned it on. I was like, this is going to be dumb. And I was like, 4 hours later, I'm still watching. I was like, this is so fucking good.
I had to Google it, and then he got mad, like, because I think there's only like 2 or 3 seasons of the show, and we were like almost to the end of like the last season. I was like, yeah, they say this isn't real. He was like, really? I just spent all day watching this, and you're gonna tell me it's not real? I'm like, yeah, no, sorry, they said it wasn't real.
Oh, it's so well done, though.
It's still really good. It's still worth the watch because we kept watching it.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for sharing the story, man. It was absolutely fantastic. Definitely appreciate it. And gang, we hope you enjoyed it as well. And
buy Ghost Poppy candles.
Yes. And if you did, be sure to check out our Instagram. That is at Weirder After Dark. Some supporting images that he'll share about this story here today. And it's not just Instagram. We are out there building some community. That means that you can visit us over on Reddit and Facebook, and you can talk to not just us, but other listeners who are enjoying these episodes just like you. And remember, we are always on the hunt for your weird New England stories. Have you ever gone to a side of the road show, been taken in, saw someone get handcuffed, stuffed in a closet, and then you're sitting there like, what's about to happen? Because if you have, send us that story. We'd love to hear it. And you can send it to thegang@weirderafterdark.com. But not just those stories, but please send us that one if you got it. But if you have anything about ghosts, aliens, anything like that, we'd absolutely love it, and we'll share it on an upcoming episode. And lastly, if you are liking this shit, if you are absolutely loving this shit, the best thing that you can do to support this show is to leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening and drop a comment on that. Say, Chris, fantastic story. I'm a medium. I want to go ahead and, conjure some ghosts with you, bro. Say, hey, Kathy, you're a non-believer. Boo. Say, Sean, shut up. Whatever you want to say, drop that comment there and go to ghostpoppy.com. Buy some candles here from us. We'd love you if you did that. And remember, it always gets a little weirder after dark.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.